There is something dangerous about pride that most people never realize. Pride does not arrive loudly. It does not knock on your door and introduce itself as your enemy. It enters quietly, silently, almost invisibly. And the most dangerous part is this. When pride enters your life, it does not feel like weakness. It feels like strength. It feels like confidence. It feels like certainty. It feels like control. This is why pride is so dangerous. Because the person who is infected with pride does not feel infected. They feel empowered. They feel elevated. They feel superior. But what they do not realize is that pride does not elevate you. It isolates you. It separates you from growth. It separates you from wisdom. It separates you from truth. And it does this slowly. So slowly that you do not notice what is happening to you. Pride often begins after success, after progress, after recognition, after achievement. When a person struggles, they are usually humble, because struggle reminds them of their limitations. Struggle reminds them that they do not know everything. Struggle keeps them open, teachable, flexible. But when success arrives, something changes. The mind begins to rewrite the story. Instead of saying, "I was fortunate," it begins to say, "I did this alone." Instead of saying, "I am still learning," it begins to say, "I already know." Instead of saying, "I can improve," it begins to say, "I am already enough." This is where pride begins, not as arrogance, but as subtle certainty, a quiet belief that you have arrived, that you have reached a level where correction is no longer necessary, where growth is no longer urgent, where listening is no longer required. This is the moment growth begins to slow down, because growth requires humility. Growth requires the ability to admit that you are not complete. But pride convinces you that you are complete. Pride convinces you that you have nothing left to learn. And the moment a person believes they have nothing left to learn, they stop learning. Not because learning is unavailable, but because their mind is no longer open. Pride closes the mind. It builds walls around the ego, walls that block correction, walls that block feedback, walls that block wisdom. And these walls feel like protection, but they are actually prisons. Because once you are inside the prison of pride, you cannot see your own limitations. You cannot see your own weaknesses. You cannot see your own blind spots. You believe you are seeing clearly, but you are not. This is why prideful people often repeat mistakes, not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack openness. They cannot see what they refuse to accept. They cannot correct what they refuse to acknowledge. They cannot improve what they refuse to examine. This is why humility is the foundation of mastery. Because humility keeps the mind open. Humility keeps the mind receptive. Humility keeps the mind evolving. The humble person does not assume they know everything. They assume there is always more to discover. They assume there is always more to understand. They assume there is always more to become. This assumption keeps them growing, keeps them improving, keeps them expanding. But pride stops this expansion, because pride replaces curiosity with certainty, and certainty is the enemy of growth. Curiosity asks questions. Certainty stops asking. Curiosity explores. Certainty settles. Curiosity evolves. Certainty stagnates. This is why the most dangerous moment in a person's life is not when they know nothing. It is when they believe they know enough. Because nun are open. They are teachable. They are flexible. They are growing. But when a person believes they know enough, they close. They become rigid. They become defensive. They become resistant. And resistance blocks transformation. There is another subtle way superiority appears. It appears in comparison. The prideful mind constantly compares. It measures itself against others. It looks for ways to feel above, ways to feel ahead, ways to feel greater. This comparison creates temporary satisfaction, but it also creates permanent limitation, because the person is no longer focused on becoming their best self. They are focused on being better than someone else, and this is a trap, because being better than someone else is not the same as being your best self. It is possible to be better than others and still be far below your potential. But pride cannot see this. Pride only sees relative advantage. It does not see absolute potential. Humility sees potential. Humility focuses on growth. Humility focuses on improvement. Humility focuses on becoming better than yesterday, not better than someone else. This is why humility creates continuous growth, and pride creates eventual stagnation, because pride sets limits, invisible limits, mental limits, limits based on identity, limits based on ego, limits based on image. And once these limits exist, the person stops expanding beyond them. They become trapped inside the version of themselves they have accepted. This is why pride is invisible imprisonment. It does not lock your body. It locks your evolution. It locks your transformation. It locks your future. But pride does not only affect how you see yourself. It also affects how you see correction. And in the next section, you will discover one of the most dangerous effects of pride. How it destroys self-awareness and makes a person blind to their own flaws. Chapter for Section 2, The Psychology of Superiority. One of the most dangerous illusions pride creates is the illusion of superiority. Not always superiority that is spoken, but superiority that is felt. It is a silent shift in perception, a quiet internal movement where a person begins to see themselves as slightly above others, not necessarily in every way, but in enough ways that it changes how they listen, how they respond, how they relate, and how they learn. Superiority is not always loud arrogance. Sometimes it appears as quiet dismissal. A person hears advice, but they do not truly consider it. They listen, but they do not absorb. They nod, but internally they reject, because pride has already convinced them that they know enough. This is where learning begins to die, because learning requires openness. Learning requires the willingness to accept that someone else may see something you cannot see. Learning requires the humility to admit that your current understanding may be incomplete. But superiority blocks this process, because superiority tells the mind, there is nothing here for you. There is nothing you need. There is nothing you lack. And when the mind believes it lacks nothing, it stops seeking. When it stops seeking, it stops growing. And when growth stops, decline quietly begins. The tragedy of superiority is that it feels like advancement. It feels like progress. It feels like elevation. But in reality, it is stagnation disguised as strength. Because true strength does not fear learning. True strength does not fear correction. True strength does not fear being wrong. Only fragile strength fears these things. Only ego fears correction. Only pride fears being exposed. Because pride depends on the illusion of completeness. It depends on the image of perfection. It depends on the belief that you are already enough. But the truth is this: every human being is incomplete. Every human being is evolving. Every human being has blind spots. Even the wisest person alive today still has things they do not know, still has areas where they can grow, still has truths they have not yet discovered. Humility accepts this reality. Pride rejects it. Pride builds an identity around being right, around being capable, around being superior. And once that identity is formed, the mind begins to protect it, even at the cost of truth. This is where pride becomes dangerous, because the person no longer seeks truth. They seek confirmation. They seek validation. They seek evidence that supports what they already believe. And they reject evidence that challenges them. This is called psychological defense. The mind protects the ego. The mind protects the identity. The mind protects the image of superiority, even if that image is false. This is why pride blinds people, not physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because pride filters reality. It allows in only what protects the ego and blocks what threatens it. Section 3. The death of self-awareness. One of the greatest gifts a human being can possess is self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to see yourself clearly, not as you wish you were, not as you pretend to be, but as you truly are. It is the ability to observe your thoughts without immediately believing them, to observe your behavior without immediately defending it, to observe your flaws without immediately denying them. Self-awareness is what allows a person to improve, because improvement begins with recognition. You cannot fix what you cannot see. You cannot correct what you cannot acknowledge. You cannot grow beyond a version of yourself you refuse to examine. This is why pride is so dangerous, because pride attacks self-awareness first, not directly, but gradually, quietly, almost invisibly. Pride whispers subtle lies to the mind. It tells the person, you are already doing enough. You are already better than most. You do not need to change. You do not need correction. You are fine the way you are. These thoughts feel comforting. They feel reassuring. They feel stabilizing. But they are not stabilizing. They are paralyzing, because they freeze growth. They freeze evolution. They freeze transformation. The person begins to live inside an illusion of completeness, an illusion that nothing is missing, an illusion that nothing needs improvement. And over time this illusion becomes reality. They stop questioning themselves. They stop examining themselves. They stop challenging themselves. And this is where stagnation begins. The most dangerous aspect of pride is not that it makes you think highly of yourself. It is that it makes you stop evaluating yourself honestly. Because evaluation requires humility. Evaluation requires the willingness to admit imperfection. Evaluation requires emotional courage. It takes strength to look at yourself and admit, I was wrong. I made a mistake. I could have done better. I need to improve. These words require inner strength, not weakness. But pride interprets these words as threats. Threats to identity. Threats to ego. Threats to image. So pride protects the ego by avoiding these admissions. Instead of saying, I was wrong, pride says, they misunderstood me. Instead of saying, I need to improve, pride says, they are just jealous. Instead of saying, I made a mistake, pride says, it was not my fault. This is how pride destroys accountability. And accountability is the foundation of growth. Without accountability, improvement becomes impossible. Capable of expanding, capable of evolving, capable of transforming. This is the power of self-awareness. It keeps you alive internally. It keeps you growing. It keeps you evolving. But pride slowly kills this awareness. Not all at once, but gradually, through denial, through defensiveness, through ego protection, until one day the person becomes a stranger to their own flaws, a stranger to their own limitations, a stranger to their own truth. And this is how pride silently destroys potential, not by force, but by blindness. In the next section, you will discover one of the most painful consequences of pride. How pride silently destroys relationships, trust, and connection. Because improvement requires ownership. Ownership of mistakes. Ownership of flaws. Ownership of weaknesses. But pride avoids ownership. Pride shifts blame. Pride creates excuses. Pride protects the ego at the expense of evolution. This is why some people remain the same for years. Not because they lack potential, but because they lack self-awareness. They repeat the same patterns, make the same mistakes, experience the same failures, and wonder why nothing changes. But nothing changes because they never changed themselves. And they never changed themselves because pride prevented them from seeing the truth. The truth about their habits. The truth about their mindset. The truth about their behavior. Pride creates emotional blindness. A blindness that allows the person to see flaws in others clearly, but remain blind to their own flaws. They become excellent critics of others, but poor observers of themselves. They can analyze others with precision, but cannot analyze themselves with honesty. This imbalance creates illusion. The illusion that the problem is always external, always outside, always someone else, never themselves. But the truth is this: transformation begins internally, not externally. Your life changes when you change. Your results change when you change. Your future changes when you change. But pride resists this internal shift, because internal change requires internal honesty, and internal honesty requires humility. Humility allows you to say, I am not finished yet. I still have work to do. I still have areas to improve. I still have truths to discover. This mindset creates growth because it keeps the mind open. Open to learning. Open to correction. Open to transformation. But pride closes the mind, and a closed mind becomes a fixed mind. A fixed mind cannot evolve. A fixed mind cannot expand. A fixed mind cannot transform. It can only repeat itself. This is why pride traps people in cycles. Cycles of limitation, cycles of stagnation, cycles of unrealized potential. But humility breaks cycles, because humility restores self-awareness. Humility restores clarity. Humility restores vision. It allows the person to see themselves honestly, not to shame themselves, but to improve themselves. Because humility does not say, "You are worthless." Humility says, "You are unfinished." And unfinished means capable of becoming more. Section 4. When pride destroys what it once built. There is something deeply tragic about pride. It does not just prevent growth. It destroys what growth once created. It does not only stop new progress. It begins to erode existing blessings. Careers collapse. Friendships weaken. Marriages grow cold. Partnerships dissolve. Leadership crumbles. Not always because of lack of skill. Not always because of lack of intelligence. But because of pride. You can build something with discipline and lose it with ego. You can earn trust through humility and destroy it through arrogance. You can rise through wisdom and fall through pride. That is the pattern history has shown again and again. Pride rarely ruins things immediately. It begins subtly. A leader stops listening. A spouse stops apologizing. A friend stops admitting fault. A professional stops accepting feedback. Small behaviors, seemingly harmless shifts, but over time become cracks, and cracks eventually become fractures, and fractures eventually become collapse. Because relationships thrive on humility. Trust is built on mutual respect. Connection is built on mutual understanding. Growth is built on shared correction. But pride resists all of these. Pride does not like to listen, because listening implies that someone else may know something you do not. Pride does not like to apologize, because apology implies fault. Pride does not like to adjust, because adjustment implies imperfection. And so pride chooses ego over connection, defense over dialogue, superiority over understanding, and slowly distance begins to form. Not dramatic at first, but noticeable. Conversations become shorter. Energy becomes colder. Patience becomes thinner. And eventually, silence replaces closeness. Many relationships do not end because of hatred. They end because of pride. Because one person refused to say, "I was wrong." Because one person refused to listen. Because one person valued being right more than being united. Pride isolates, and isolation feels like strength at first. It feels independent. It feels self-sufficient. It feels powerful. But prolonged isolation creates emotional weakness, because humans are not designed to thrive alone. We are designed for connection. We are designed for exchange. We are designed for collaboration. But pride resists collaboration, because collaboration requires equality. And pride always seeks elevation. Pride wants to be above. Humility is comfortable being among. And this difference determines the quality of your relationships. When pride leads, you compete even in love. When humility leads, you cooperate. When pride leads, you defend constantly. When humility leads, you discuss openly. When pride leads, you hide mistakes. When humility leads, you repair mistakes. One preserves connection. The other slowly dissolves it. And the most dangerous part is this: pride convinces you that you are protecting your dignity. But in reality, you are sacrificing your peace. Because unresolved pride creates tension. Unspoken apologies create emotional weight. Unacknowledged faults create distance. And distance, over time, becomes separation. It happens in friendships. It happens in families. It happens in business partnerships. It happens in leadership. History is filled with leaders who rose through humility and fell through pride. At the beginning, they listened. They adapted. They learned. They evolved. But as success grew, humility shrank. Feedback became insult. Advice became threat. Correction became disrespect. And slowly, their fall began. Not because they lacked ability, but because they lost humility. This is the invisible poison of pride. It attacks self-awareness. It attacks relationships. And eventually, it attacks destiny. Because no one sustains success alone. No one grows in isolation. No one evolves without correction. Pride rejects correction. And without correction, decline is inevitable. Humility, however, protects longevity. Humility sustains influence. Humility preserves relationships. Humility allows constant recalibration. It allows you to say, I need help. I need clarity. I need guidance. I may have missed something. And these statements do not weaken you. They strengthen you because they keep you adaptable. And adaptability determines survival. The world changes. Circumstances change. Markets change. People change. If you cannot adjust, you collapse. And pride resists adjustment. But humility embraces learning. This is why humility is not weakness. It is wisdom in action. It is strength under control. It is power without arrogance. It is confidence without superiority. And in the long run, humility outlasts pride. Because humility keeps growing. Pride peaks, then declines. Humility evolves. Pride stagnates. Humility connects. Pride isolates. Humility builds. Pride destroys. As we close this chapter, reflect on this quietly. Where has pride entered your life silently? In your thoughts. In your relationships. In your responses. In your leadership. In your growth. Do not answer with guilt. Answer with awareness. Because awareness is the beginning of transformation. In Chapter 5, we will return to humility once more. But this time, we learn humility not just as a virtue, but as a strategic advantage. You will discover how humility becomes power in leadership, success, influence, and personal mastery. You will see how humility does not shrink you. It positions you. Prepare your mind. Because what comes next will reshape how you define strength. When your mind is closed, growth suffocates. Imagine two containers. One is open. One is sealed shut. Rain falls on both. Only one receives water. The open one fills. The closed one remains empty. Humility is openness. Pride is closure. And life constantly pours opportunities for growth. But only the humble receive them. This principle applies everywhere. In your career, in your relationships, in your personal development. The humble person improves faster because they accept feedback. They observe carefully. They adjust quickly. They refine continuously. The proud person improves slowly because they resist correction. They defend their current identity. They protect their ego instead of expanding their ability. And in the long run, humility always surpasses pride. Because humility compounds. Each lesson builds upon the previous one. Each correction sharpens awareness. Each adjustment increases effectiveness. Years later, the humble person becomes unstoppable, not because they were the most talented initially, but because they never stopped growing. Humility transforms time into an ally. Pride turns time into an enemy. Because if you are not improving, you are falling behind. The world does not stand still. It moves forward. Technology evolves. Knowledge expands. Standards rise. And those who remain humble move with it. Those who remain proud remain behind it. This is why humility is the foundation of mastery. Masters are not those who know everything. They are those who never stop learning. They remain students, even at the highest levels. They ask questions. They observe deeply. They remain curious. Curiosity is the fuel of growth. And humility protects curiosity. Pride destroys curiosity. Because pride believes there is nothing left to discover. But humility sees endless possibility. This mindset transforms your entire life. It removes the fear of being wrong. Because being wrong becomes an opportunity to learn. It removes the fear of correction. Because correction becomes refinement. It removes the fear of ignorance. Because ignorance becomes the beginning of knowledge. Chapter 5. The Quiet Power. How Humility Becomes Your Greatest Advantage. Section 1. Why Humility Multiplies Growth Faster Than Talent. There is a powerful truth that most people overlook. Growth is not determined only by intelligence. It is determined by openness. Two people can have the same opportunity, the same resources, the same environment. Yet years later, one rises far beyond the other. The difference is not always talent. It is humility. Because humility keeps the door of growth open. Pride closes it. Humility says there is more to learn. Pride says, I already know enough. And the moment learning stops, growth stops. The moment growth stops, decline begins. This is why humility is not just a moral trait. It is a strategic advantage. It allows you to continuously improve, continuously refine, continuously evolve. Every expert you admire today was once a beginner. Every master was once a student. Every strong mind was once untrained. What separated them was not initial ability. It was sustained humility. They never stopped learning. They never assumed they had arrived. They never allowed success to blind them. Because success can become dangerous when it creates the illusion of completion. Humility protects you from this illusion. It reminds you that no matter how far you have come, there is always another level. And this mindset keeps you expanding. The proud person seeks validation. The humble person seeks improvement. The proud asks, how do I look? The humble person asks, how can I grow? And these questions lead to very different lives. Validation creates stagnation. Growth creates transformation. When you prioritize validation, you avoid situations that expose your weakness. You avoid correction. You avoid environments where you are not the best, because pride feels threatened by weakness. But humility understands weakness is the entry point of strength. Humility allows you to enter rooms where you are not the most knowledgeable. It allows you to listen more than you speak. It allows you to absorb wisdom. And over time, power. Not loud power, quiet power, stable power, sustainable power. Because true power is not the illusion of knowing everything. It is the commitment to continuous evolution. This is why humility accelerates learning. When your mind is open, information flows freely. Humility creates psychological freedom. You no longer need to pretend. You no longer need to protect an image. You no longer need to appear perfect. You simply need to grow. And growth becomes your focus. Not image. Not validation. Not superiority. Growth. This is where true confidence is born. Not from knowing everything, but from knowing that you can learn anything. Not from being perfect, but from being adaptable. Not from being superior, but from being expandable. Humility makes you expandable. It increases your capacity. It strengthens your mind. It sharpens your perception. It deepens your wisdom. And over time, it keeps someone who can handle more. More responsibility. More opportunity. More influence. Because you have built the internal structure to support it. Pride seeks elevation without preparation. Humility builds preparation before elevation. And this preparation determines stability. Many people rise quickly and fall quickly, because pride lifted them faster than their character could sustain. Humility ensures that when you rise, you remain, because you have built depth. Depth sustains height. Without depth, height collapses. Humility builds depth, and depth makes success permanent. As you reflect on your own life, ask yourself honestly, are you protecting your image or expanding your capacity? Are you seeking validation or pursuing growth? Because your answer determines your future. And in the next section, you will discover something even more powerful. You will see how humility not only accelerates growth, but attracts opportunity itself. Opportunities are drawn to humility, because humility creates trust, and trust opens doors that talent alone cannot open. Section 2. Why humility attracts opportunities that pride repels. There is something invisible that determines who receives opportunities and who does not. It is not always skill. It is not always intelligence. It is not always experience. It is trust. Trust is the currency of opportunity, and humility is what earns it. Because humility makes people feel safe. It makes them feel respected. It makes them feel seen. And when people feel safe around you, they open doors for you. But pride does the opposite. Pride creates distance. It creates discomfort. It creates silent resistance. People may admire a proud person from afar, but they rarely trust them deeply. And Without trust, opportunity remains limited. This is one of the great paradoxes of life. Many people believe that appearing superior will attract more opportunities. But the truth is, appearing humble attracts more support. Because humility signals strength without arrogance. It signals confidence without insecurity. It signals capability without intimidation. People naturally want to help those who are humble. They want to teach them. They want to guide them. They want to invest in them. Because humility shows readiness. It shows that the person can receive wisdom. It shows that the person can handle growth. It shows that the person will not misuse opportunity. Opportunity is not given only based on competence. It is given based on perceived responsibility. People ask themselves silently, can this person handle elevation? Can this person handle influence? Can this person handle power? Humility answers these questions without words. It demonstrates emotional maturity. It demonstrates self-control. It demonstrates stability. Pride, on the other hand, raises silent doubts, because pride often signals insecurity beneath the surface. It signals a need for validation. It signals emotional instability, and people hesitate to give responsibility to those who are emotionally unstable, because responsibility amplifies character. If someone is humble, responsibility amplifies wisdom. If someone is proud, responsibility amplifies arrogance. This is why humility often rises quietly, while pride often rises loudly but falls suddenly. Humility builds strong foundations. Pride builds fragile structures. You may not notice it immediately, but over time, humilitatis, mentors appear, guides appear, support appears, because humility invites contribution. It invites collaboration. It invites investment. Pride isolates. Humility connects. And success is rarely achieved alone. It is built through networks of trust, networks of guidance, networks of support. Humility strengthens these networks. Pride weakens them. Think about the people you naturally want to help. They are not the ones who act superior. They are the ones who show openness, respect, willingness to learn, gratitude. These qualities activate generosity in others, because humility honors others. And when people feel honored, they reciprocate, give more. They support more. They invest more. This is not manipulation. It is alignment with human nature. Humility aligns with human psychology. Pride resists it. Even in leadership, humility increases influence, because people follow those who respect them, not those who dominate them. A humble leader listens, considers, acknowledges, and this builds loyalty. A proud leader dismisses, controls, belittles, and this creates silent resentment. Resentment eventually destroys influence, but humility sustains it. Humility makes your presence attractive, not through force, but through respect. People want to work with you, not because they are forced, but because they trust you. This is real influence, not control, but voluntary alignment. And this influence expands your reach. It multiplies your impact. It increases your opportunities, because opportunities often come through people, not systems, not algorithms. people, and people respond to humility. There is another powerful aspect of humility. Humility keeps you teachable. When mentors see humility in you, they invest more deeply, because they know their wisdom will not be wasted. Pride blocks mentorship, because pride resists instruction. Mentors withdraw from pride. They invest in humility. This is why humble individuals often accelerate faster. They receive guidance others never receive. They gain insights others never access. They avoid mistakes others repeatedly make, because humility allows correction early. Pride delays correction until consequences appear. By then, damage has already occurred. Humility protects you from unnecessary suffering, because it allows early adjustment. It allows early refinement. It allows early evolution. And evolution is the key to long-term success. Humility also protects your reputation, because humble people do not provoke unnecessary conflict. They do not seek to dominate conversations. They do not seek to prove superiority. They move with quiet confidence. And this creates respect. Respect that grows over time. Not forced respect. Earned respect. And earned respect becomes a powerful asset. It opens doors silently. People recommend you when you are not present. They trust you with responsibility. They see you as reliable, because humility signals reliability. Pride signals unpredictability. Reliability attracts opportunity. Unpredictability repels it. This is why humility is not weakness. It is strategic strength. It positions you for elevation. It prepares you for expansion. It aligns you with growth. It aligns you with trust. It aligns you with opportunity. As you reflect on your own life, consider this deeply. Are you creating trust or creating distance? Are people comfortable guiding you or cautious around you? Are you inviting opportunity or unknowingly repelling it? Because humility does more than shape your character. It shapes your future. And in the next section, you will discover an even deeper truth. You will discover how humility protects you at the moment when pride becomes most dangerous. The moment of success. Humility also protects your relationships during success, because success changes how people interact with you. Some people will admire you. Some people will envy you. Some people will test you. Humility helps you navigate these changes wisely. It prevents you from becoming arrogant toward those who supported you before your success. It prevents you from forgetting your origins. It prevents you from disconnecting from your humanity. Pride creates distance between you and others. Humility maintains connection. Connection protects emotional health. Isolation weakens it. Success without humility leads to loneliness, because people begin to see you as unreachable, untouchable, disconnected. Humility keeps you approachable, human, relatable. This preserves meaningful relationships. Relationships sustain emotional stability. Emotional stability sustains success. Success is not sustained by talent alone. It is sustained by character. And humility is one of the strongest forms of character. As you continue your journey, remember this truth deeply. Success is not the greatest test of your ability. It is the greatest test of your humility, because success amplifies who you already are. If you are humble, success strengthens your wisdom. If you are proud, success strengthens your weakness. And in the final section of this chapter, you will discover how humility quietly multiplies your growth over time, and why those who embrace humility often surpass those who rely on pride. Section 3. The moment success tests your soul. There is a moment in every person's life that reveals who they truly are. It is not the moment of failure. It is the moment of success. Failure weakens pride naturally. Failure humbles people automatically. Failure forces reflection. Failure forces adjustment. Failure forces surrender. But success tests humility. Success introduces a new danger, a silent danger, a subtle danger. Because success begins to whisper lies. It whispers, "You did this alone." It whispers, "You are above others now." It whispers, "You no longer need to listen." It whispers, "You have arrived." And if you believe those whispers, your fall has already begun. Because success can intoxicate the mind. It can distort perception. It can disconnect you from reality. Humility protects you in this moment, because humility reminds you of truth. It reminds you that your success was not built alone. It reminds you of the people who helped you, the people who taught you, the people who supported you, the people who corrected you, the people who believed in you before you believed in yourself. Humility keeps you grounded in gratitude, and gratitude stabilizes success. Pride erases gratitude, and when gratitude disappears, instability begins, because pride replaces gratitude with entitlement. Instead of feeling thankful, you begin to feel deserving. Instead of feeling appreciative, you begin to feel superior. This subtle shift is dangerous, because entitlement weakens discipline. It weakens hunger. It weakens awareness. It creates complacency. You begin to believe that success will continue automatically. You stop doing the small things that built your success. You stop listening carefully. You stop observing carefully. You stop improving intentionally. Because pride convinces you that improvement is no longer necessary. This is how decline begins. Not suddenly, but gradually, silently, almost invisibly. Humility prevents this decline, because humility keeps you in a learning state. It keeps you curious. It keeps you open. It keeps you aware of your limitations. And awareness protects you. The most dangerous person is not the person who lacks knowledge. It is the person who believes they already know everything. Because they stop learning. They stop adapting. They stop evolving. And the world continues to move forward without them. Humility ensures you never stop evolving. It ensures you remain flexible. It ensures you remain receptive. It ensures you remain alert, even after success arrives. This is why some people sustain success for decades, while others lose it quickly. The difference is not talent. It is posture. Inner posture. Humility maintains posture. Pride distorts posture. Pride makes you resist correction, even when correction is necessary, even when correction could save you. Because pride interprets correction as attack. Humility interprets correction as protection. This difference determines longevity. Humility extends your lifespan in success. Pride shortens it. Pride isolates you at the moment you need guidance most. Because proud people stop listening. They surround themselves only with people who agree with them. They reject honest feedback. They reject uncomfortable truth. And this creates blind spots. Blind spots grow into weaknesses. Weaknesses grow into failures. Failures grow into collapse. Humility prevents isolation. Because humility invites honest voices. It invites accountability. It invites perspective. It invites balance. And balance stabilizes success. There is another powerful protection humility provides. Humility protects your identity from being consumed by your achievements. Because success can become addictive. You begin to attach your worth to your accomplishments. You begin to fear losing status. You begin to fear losing recognition. This fear creates anxiety. It creates pressure. It creates instability. But humility separates your identity from your achievements. It reminds you that success is something you experience, not something you are. This distinction protects your inner peace. Because even if success fluctuates, your identity remains stable. Your sense of self remains intact. Pride fuses identity with success. So, when success weakens, identity collapses. This creates emotional crisis. Humility prevents this emotional collapse. It keeps your foundation internal, not external, not dependent on validation, not dependent on recognition, but dependent on character. Character does not collapse when circumstances change. Character remains stable. This stability allows humble individuals to recover faster from setbacks, because their identity was never built on fragile foundations. It was built on internal strength. Pride builds identity on external structures, titles, recognition, status, validation. These structures are temporary. They can disappear. And when they do, pride has nothing left to stand on. But humility always has something to stand on. Because humility stands on truth. Truth does not collapse. Truth does not disappear. Truth remains. Humility also protects your relationships during success. Section for the compounding effect of humility. There is a law in life that governs everything. Small actions, repeated consistently, produce massive results over time. This is the law of compounding. Most people understand it financially. Few understand it personally. Humility compounds. Pride decays. Every time you choose humility, something small happens internally. You listen more carefully. You reflect more honestly. You adjust more quickly. You apologize sooner. You learn faster. These small actions seem insignificant in the moment, but repeated daily, they transform your character. And character determines destiny. Humility compounds knowledge, because every correction adds clarity. Every lesson adds depth. Every conversation adds perspective. Years later, the humble person possesses layered wisdom, not because they were extraordinary, but because they were open. Pride interrupts this compounding, because pride rejects small corrections. It dismisses minor feedback. It ignores subtle warnings. And over time, these ignores big major problems. Humility adjusts early. Pride reacts late. And early adjustment prevents painful collapse. The compounding effect of humility is quiet. It is not dramatic. It is not flashy. It does not announce itself. But it builds steadily, like a strong foundation beneath a tall building. Invisible, yet essential. While others chase quick elevation through ego, the humble build depth. Depth may not be visible immediately, but depth sustains height. Without depth, height collapses under pressure. Life will test you. Pressure will come. Criticism will come. Failure will come. Change will come. If your foundation is pride, you will crack under pressure. Because pride resists pressure. It resists criticism. It resists adaptation. But humility absorbs pressure. It learns from criticism. It adapts to change. This adaptability creates resilience. Resilience compounds into strength. Strength compounds into stability. Stability compounds into longevity. And longevity is what separates temporary success from lasting impact. Humility also compounds trust. When people consistently see humility in you, their confidence in you increases. They trust your judgment. They trust your leadership. They trust your character. Trust accumulates over time. And accumulated trust becomes influence. Influence opens doors that talent alone cannot open. Because success changes how people interact with you. Some people will admire you. Some people will envy you. Some people will test you. Humility helps you navigate these changes wisely. It prevents you from becoming arrogant toward those who supported you before your success. It prevents you from forgetting your origins. It prevents you from disconnecting from your humanity. Pride creates distance between you and others. Humility maintains connection. Connection protects emotional health. Isolation weakens it. Success without humility leads to loneliness. Because people begin to see you as unreachable, untouchable, disconnected. Humility keeps you approachable, human, relatable. This preserves meaningful relationships. Relationships sustain emotional stability. Emotional stability sustains success. Success is not sustained by talent alone. It is sustained by character. And humility is one of the strongest forms of character. As you continue your journey, remember this truth deeply. Success is not the greatest test of your ability. It is the greatest test of your humility. Because success amplifies who you already are. If you are humble, success strengthens your wisdom. If you are proud, success strengthens your weakness. And in the final section of this chapter, you will discover how humility quietly multiplies your growth over time, and why those who embrace humility often surpass those who rely on pride. Pride, however, slowly erodes trust. Even if people admire your skill, they hesitate to rely on your character. And without trust, your growth becomes limited. Humility compounds peace. Because you are not constantly defending your ego. You are not constantly proving yourself. You are not constantly competing. You are simply evolving. This reduces internal tension. It reduces emotional conflict. It reduces anxiety. Pride, on the other hand, creates constant comparison. constant defense, constant insecurity, even if it is hidden, because pride depends on maintaining an image, and maintaining an image is exhausting. Humility removes this burden. It allows you to be authentic, to be unfinished, to be evolving. And this authenticity creates inner freedom. Freedom allows creativity. Creativity allows innovation. Innovation allows expansion. All of these benefits flow quietly from humility. This is why humility is not weakness. It is intelligent self-positioning. It positions you for sustainable growth. It positions you for trust. It positions you for influence. It positions you for resilience. And most importantly, it positions you for transformation. Because transformation requires continuous self-examination, continuous correction, continu raffinement. Pride interrupts refinement. Humility fuels it. Over 10 years, the difference becomes dramatic. The humble person becomes wise, grounded, respected, stable. The proud person often becomes isolated, rigide, defensive, vulnerable to collapse. The path you choose daily determines which version you become. Humility does not promise immediate applause, but it guarantees long-term strength. Pride promises immediate validation, but it risks long-term loss. As this chapter closes, reflect deeply. What are you compounding in your life right now? Is it openness or defensiveness? Is it curiosity or certainty? Is it gratitude or entitlement? Because whatever you repeat daily is shaping your future. And in the next chapter, we will confront the final truth. We will explore what happens when pride finally collapses. We will examine the fall, the awakening, and the return to humility. Because sometimes the greatest transformation begins after the greatest lesson. Chapter 6: The Fall, the Awakening, and the Return. There comes a moment in every life when truth knocks loudly. Not gently, not subtly, but unmistakably. It may arrive through loss, through failure, through rejection, through public embarrassment, through private heartbreak, through the quiet realization that something is wrong. For some, that moment is external. For others, it is internal. But for everyone who allows pride to grow unchecked, confrontation is inevitable. Because pride can delay truth, but it cannot defeat it. And when truth finally arrives, it does not negotiate. IT reveals. Section 1: The Collapse of Illusion. Pride builds an identity, an image, a version of yourself that feels elevated. But often that version is fragile. It is built on comparison, on vasion, on status, on superiority. And fragile structures eventually face pressure. Pressure reveals strength, or exposes weakness. You may have built success. You may have gained recognition. You may have earned admiration. But if pride quietly replaced humility along the way, the structure becomes unstable. And then something shifts. A business deal collapses. A trusted friend distances themselves. A spouse grows silent. A leader challenges your authority. A mistake becomes public. Or worse, you begin to feel empty inside despite visible success. This is the crack. At first, you defend it. You blame others. You justify your actions. You minimize the warning signs. But cracks spread, and eventually the illusion cannot hold. The fall does not always look dramatic from the outside. Sometimes it is deeply private. A night where you sit alone and realize, I ignored advice. I stopped listening. I pushed people away. I let ego lead. And in that moment, something heavy breaks. Not your reputation, not your career, but your illusion. And though it feels painful, it is sacred, because illusion must die for growth to live. Section 2. The mirror moment. After the collapse comes the mirror. This is the most important moment of the entire journey, because here you cannot hide. There is no audience, no applause, no ovation. Just you. And truth. The mirror asks uncomfortable questions. Where did you change? When did you stop being teachable? When did correction become insult? When did gratitude become entitlement? When did confidence turn into superiority? These questions are sharp. They pierce the ego, but they heal the soul, because answering them honestly restores alignment. This is awakening. Awakening is not loud. It is quiet. It is the moment you realize that humility was never weakness. It was wisdom. You begin to see how many conflicts could have been avoided with a softer tone. How many relationships could have survived with a quicker apology. How many opportunities could have remained with a listening posture. You realize that pride cost more than it gave. And this realization humbles you naturally. Not because someone forced you, but because truth exposed you. This is the turning point. Some run from this moment. They rebuild the illusion stronger. They double down on ego. But those who choose growth lean into the discomfort. They accept responsibility, not to punish themselves, but to transform themselves. And transformation begins here. Section 3. The rebuilding. Returning to humility is not a speech. It is not an announcement. It is a lifestyle shift. It shows up quietly. You begin to listen differently, not waiting for your turn to speak, but truly hearing. You begin to apologize without qualification. No but, no justification, just ownership. You begin to ask for feedback again. You begin to welcome correction again. You begin to value people over image, growth over pride, connection over control, and something changes inside you. The tension fades. The need to prove dissolves. The pressure to dominate disappears. In its place comes peace, a grounded strength, a confidence that does not shout, a stability that does not depend on applause. This is mature humility. It is not insecurity. It is not self-doubt. It is self-awareness refined by experience. And now, success, if it returns, feels different. It feels lighter, because you no longer carry it as identity. You carry it as responsibility. You no longer chase validation. You chase excellence. You no longer compete with others. You compete with your previous self. This is evolution. Section 4. The legacy of humility. In the end, Pride leaves a fragile legacy. It may leave temporary admiration, temporary applause, temporary dominance.